The divorce kit sat on my dining room table like a loaded gun. A bright red bow adorned the box, mocking me with its festive appearance. My 35th birthday gift from my husband, a DIY guide to ending our marriage. I'm Scarlett, and this is how I learned that revenge is best served with a signature at the bottom of very official documents. Happy birthday, darling! Kylan's voice dripped with artificial sweetness as he leaned against our marble kitchen counter, watching me with those cold gray eyes. I thought it was time we stopped pretending. My fingers traced the edge of the box, maintaining the composed smile I'd perfected over 8 years of marriage. How thoughtful of you, honey. Did you keep the receipt? He laughed, that practiced sound he used in board meetings. Always with the jokes. This is why I married you, you know. Your sense of humor. And here, I thought it was my family's company you married me for. The words slipped out before I could stop them. His expression hardened. Careful, Scarlett. We both know how much influence I have over Phillips Industries now. Your grandfather may have built it, but I'm the one keeping it alive. I lifted the divorce kit from the box, flipping through its pages with deliberate slowness. By cooking the books? Excuse me? His knuckles whitened against the counter. Nothing, dear. Just thinking out loud. I set the kit down and reached for my phone. I should call Peyton, thank her for the lovely bracelet she sent. Your sister. He practically spat the word. Still bitter about being passed over for the VP position? Actually, she's doing great at her new firm. I dialed Peyton's number, maintaining eye contact with Kylan. Unlike some people, she doesn't need to marry into success. He crossed the kitchen in 3 strides, snatching the phone from my hand. That's enough. I've been patient with your little jabs, but remember who holds the cards here. Give me my phone, Keelan. Or what? He dangled it just out of reach. You'll run to Greta? Tell her your suspicions about the quarterly reports? Nobody would believe you over me. I stood, smoothing my skirt. You're right. Who would believe the granddaughter of the company's founder over the man who appeared out of nowhere 5 years ago? His hand connected with the counter, the sharp crack making me flinch. I built that company into what it is today. You built yourself a nice little embezzlement scheme, you mean? The silence that followed was deafening. Kylan's face went through a fascinating array of colors before settling on an alarming shade of red. You have no proof. Yet. I retrieved my phone from his loosened grip. Consider this divorce kit your first warning, honey. You shouldn't have gotten greedy. He grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. Don't threaten me, Scarlett. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Neither do you. I twisted free, heading for the door. Thanks for the birthday gift. I'll make good use of it. Where are you going? To see Greta. She's taking me to lunch. I paused at the doorway. Oh, and Kylan? I'd start looking for a good lawyer if I were you. His voice followed me down the hallway. You'll regret this, Scarlett. I promise you that. In my car, my hands finally started shaking. I pulled out my phone and dialed Greta's number. Happy birthday, sweetie, she answered on the first ring. I take it he gave you the gift? He did. I started the engine. And you were right about everything. He practically admitted to the embezzlement. I've been watching the numbers for months. Greta's voice hardened. Are you ready to do this? I thought about the divorce kit, about Kylan's threats, about my grandfather's legacy crumbling under the weight of one man's greed. More than ready. Is Chris still willing to help? He's got a whole file of evidence ready. Your sister's on board too. Good. I pulled onto the main road, leaving behind the house that had become my prison. Because I'm not just going to divorce him, Greta. I'm going to destroy him. That's my girl. I could hear her smile through the phone. Meet me at Franklin's office instead of the restaurant. He's expecting us. As I drove toward downtown, my birthday gift sat in the passenger seat like a promise. Kylan thought he was being cruel, but he'd actually given me exactly what I needed. Permission to stop pretending. The time for playing the dutiful wife was over. Now it was time to play for keeps. Franklin's office felt like a war room as Greta spread financial documents across his mahogany desk. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the Venetian blinds, creating prison bar patterns across the damning evidence of my husband's betrayal. Look at this, Greta pointed to a series of transactions. He's been siphoning money through shell companies for at least 3 years. Small amounts at first, but getting bolder each quarter. I leaned closer, my stomach churning. How much? Nearly 4 million. Greta's voice was tight with anger. He's been hiding it in offshore accounts, thinking nobody would notice. Franklin adjusted his glasses, frowning at the papers. But you did notice, Greta. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Because I needed absolute proof. She pulled out another folder. And because Scarlett needed to see his true colors for herself. My phone buzzed. Kylan's third attempt to call since I'd left the house. I declined it with savage satisfaction. He's getting nervous, I said, showing them the screen. Good. Scarlett, Franklin leaned forward, his expression serious. Are you absolutely sure you want to pursue this? Once we start, there's no going back. He threatened my family's legacy, Franklin. He's stealing from the company my grandfather built from nothing. I met his gaze steadily. I want everything he took, and I want him behind bars. A knock at the door made us all jump. Peyton slipped in, her designer suit slightly rumpled from rushing over. Sorry I'm late. She hugged me tight. Happy birthday, sis, though I guess that's debatable given the circumstances. Actually, it's turning out to be quite productive. I gestured to the documents. Want to see what your beloved brother-in-law's been up to? As Peyton reviewed the evidence, her face darkened. That bastard. I knew something was off when he pushed me out of the VP position. He needed someone more cooperative, Greta explained. Someone who wouldn't question his creative accounting. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Chris. Kay just stormed into the office, demanding to see today's transfer records. What should I do? I showed the message to Greta, who smiled grimly. Tell Chris to stall him. Make excuses about system maintenance. We need to move fast, Franklin said, gathering the documents. I can file for divorce tomorrow morning, but we need to coordinate with the SEC about the fraud charges. No, I said, surprising myself with my firmness. Not yet. I want him to think he's won first. Peyton raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time I played the role he expects. The defeated wife. I started pacing, my mind racing. If he believes I'm giving up, he'll get sloppy, make mistakes. He's already making mistakes, Greta pointed out. That's how we caught him. True, but I want everything. Every transaction, every contact, every corrupt deal he's made using my family's name. I turned to Chris's text. And I want him to feel as helpless as he made me feel. Franklin nodded slowly. It's risky, but it could work. How long do you need? 2 weeks? I thought about the company's upcoming anniversary party. That's when we'll have everyone important in one room. Perfect timing, Peyton grinned. Nothing like a public humiliation to really drive the point home. My phone buzzed yet again. This time, I answered. Where the hell are you? Kylan's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. Having lunch with Greta, like I said. I kept my voice small, frightened. I'm sorry about earlier, honey. Can we talk when I get home? The silence on his end was telling. He'd expected a fight, not submission. Of course, darling. His tone softened immediately. I may have overreacted this morning. Perhaps we can discuss the divorce kit, reconsider things. I'd like that. I forced a tremor into my voice. I don't want to lose you, Kylan. After hanging up, I met the impressed stares of my allies. Damn, sis, Peyton whistled. You missed your calling as an actress. I learned from the best. I gathered my purse. Greta, can you get me complete access to the company's financial records? Already done. I'll send you the login details securely. Franklin, start preparing the divorce papers, but don't file them yet. And Peyton. Yeah? Think you could help me plan one hell of an anniversary party? My sister's smile was positively wicked. It would be my pleasure. As I drove home, I rehearsed my lines for the performance ahead. Poor, scared Scarlett, begging her husband's forgiveness. Grateful, submissive Scarlett, accepting his control over her family's company. Kylan thought he'd won when he gave me that divorce kit. He didn't realize he'd actually given me permission to stop being his wife and start being his worst nightmare. The game was on, and I intended to play it perfectly. You'll never believe what I found. Chris's voice was barely a whisper as he led me through the empty office corridors after hours. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting strange shadows as we made our way to his cramped IT office. A week had passed since my birthday, and Kylan had relaxed his guard, convinced by my performance of a repentant wife. Each morning, I kissed him goodbye, playing the role of someone desperate to save her marriage. Each night, I worked with my allies to dismantle his empire. Chris closed the door behind us and pulled out a USB drive. Remember those offshore accounts Greta found? They're just the tip of the iceberg. He plugged the drive into his computer, pulling up a series of emails. Kylan's been communicating with someone named Marcus about a major deal. They're planning to sell off the company's patents. My blood ran cold. Those patents are worth hundreds of millions, Chris finished. And guess where the money would go? Before I could answer, a knock at the door made us both freeze. Chris quickly minimized the windows as Peyton slipped inside. "Sorry I'm late," she said, locking the door behind her. "Had to shake off Thompson from accounting. He's like Kylan's personal watchdog lately." "Speaking of watchdogs," Chris said, "look what our dear brother-in-law's been up to." As Peyton reviewed the emails, her face went from concerned to furious. "This Marcus guy, I've seen him before, at that charity gala last month." "What?" I turned to her sharply. "Are you sure?" She pulled out her phone, scrolling through photos until she found one from the gala. In the background, partially obscured but clearly visible, was Kylan speaking with a distinguished-looking man in his 50s. "That's him," Chris confirmed, comparing the photo to other documents. "Marcus Blackwood, CEO of Rivera Technologies." "Our biggest competitor," I breathed. "Kylan's selling us out to Rivera?" "Not if we can help it," Peyton said, forwarding the photo to my phone. "The deal's supposed to happen right after the anniversary party." My phone buzzed. A text from Kylan. "Working late tonight, darling. Don't wait up." "Working late, my ass," I muttered, showing them the message. "He's probably meeting with Marcus right now." Chris's fingers flew over his keyboard. "Want me to check his calendar? I still have access to his assistant's email." "Do it." Sure enough, Kylan had a dinner meeting scheduled at LeBlanc, an upscale restaurant downtown. "I could go there," Peyton offered. "Get some photos of their meeting." I shook my head. "Too risky. He knows your face." I turned to Chris. "But he doesn't know yours, not really. You're just the IT guy to him." Chris grinned. "I do have a pretty forgettable face. Want me to play spy?" "Take my car," Peyton said, tossing him her keys. "The windows are tinted, and it's not one he'd recognize." As Chris left on his mission, Peyton and I continued going through the files. The scope of Kylan's betrayal was staggering. Not just embezzlement, but corporate espionage, insider trading, and now this patent scheme. "Greta's going to have a field day with this," Peyton said, copying files to another drive. "The SEC will—" The office door rattled suddenly, making us both jump. A voice called out, "Security check!" "Just a minute," I called back, trying to sound casual, as Peyton frantically closed windows and removed the drive. I opened the door to find Thompson standing there, his security badge prominently displayed. "Mrs. Phillips, what are you doing here so late?" "Just showing my sister some old family photos from the company archives," I said smoothly. "We're planning a slideshow for the anniversary party." He peered past me suspiciously. "In the IT office?" "The scanner's better in here," Peyton chimed in, holding up some old photographs we kept for just such occasions. "See? Dad's first day as CEO." Thompson relaxed slightly, but still looked uncertain. "Mr. Phillips didn't mention you'd be here tonight." "Oh," I raised an eyebrow. "That's strange, since he's the one who suggested it. You can call him if you'd like. He's at LeBlanc with a client right now." The name drop worked. Thompson backed off, muttering apologies. After he left, Peyton and I waited 5 full minutes before speaking. "That was too close," she whispered. "No," I said, a plan forming. "That was perfect. Now we know Thompson reports directly to Kylan." My phone buzzed with a message from Chris. "Got photos. You're not going to believe who else is at this dinner." The attached picture showed Kylan, Marcus, and Thompson himself, all raising glasses in a toast. "Well, well," Peyton said, looking over my shoulder. "Looks like someone's working 2 jobs." I forwarded the photo to Greta and Franklin. "And now we know exactly who to watch." The pieces were falling into place faster than I'd hoped. Kylan thought he was orchestrating a masterpiece of corporate theft. He didn't realize he was actually staging his own downfall, and I was going to make sure he had front-row seats to the show. "The moral implications alone are staggering," Franklin said, pacing his office the next morning. "It's not just fraud anymore. This is corporate treason." I sat across from his desk, watching him process everything we discovered. "What's the potential prison time looking at?" "With everything we have?" He stopped pacing. 15 to 20 years minimum. The SEC will have a field day with this." Greta burst through the door, waving a stack of papers. "It gets better. I found where the patent money was supposed to go." She spread the documents across Franklin's desk. 3 shell companies, all registered in the Cayman Islands, all connected to accounts in Marcus's name. But guess who has signing authority? "Thompson," I guessed. "And Kylan's sister." Greta's eyes gleamed. "The same sister who conveniently works for the SEC. The revelation hit me like a punch to the gut. "That's why he's been so confident. He has someone on the inside." "Had someone," Franklin corrected, reaching for his phone. "I have a contact at the SEC who owes me a favor. This kind of conflict of interest won't go unnoticed." My phone buzzed. Kylan calling. I answered, switching to speaker mode. "Darling, where are you?" His voice oozed concern. "I stopped by the house to surprise you for lunch." "Just running errands," I said, keeping my voice light. "Missing me already?" "Always." He paused. "I've been thinking about that divorce kit. I was cruel, and I'm sorry. Let me make it up to you. Dinner tonight?" I caught Greta's warning look and forced a tremor into my voice. "I'd like that. I've missed you too." After hanging up, I slumped in my chair. "He's getting suspicious." "No," Greta said thoughtfully. "He's getting nervous. The anniversary party's in 3 days, and the patent deal is supposed to happen right after. He wants to make sure you're still under control." "Speaking of control," Franklin interrupted, hanging up his phone. "My SEC contact wants to meet today." "Set it up," I said. "But first, I need to have dinner with my husband." That evening, I sat across from Kylan at our usual table in his favorite restaurant, watching him perform his version of contrition. "I've been stressed about work," he said, reaching for my hand. "The company's facing some challenges, and I took it out on you. It wasn't fair." "What kind of challenges?" I asked innocently, squeezing his hand. "Maybe I could help?" His smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Nothing for you to worry about, darling. Just some patent negotiations." "With Rivera Technologies?" The wine glass froze halfway to his lips. "What?" "I saw it in the paper," I lied smoothly. "They're expanding their portfolio, aren't they?" Relief flooded his features. "Yes, exactly. Just routine business dealings." My phone buzzed with a text from Chris. "Thompson accessing financial records now, running full system backup." I excused myself to the restroom, calling Chris immediately. "He's copying everything," Chris whispered. "All the legitimate records, trying to cover their tracks." "Let him," I said. "But make sure you—" "Already done. Every file he touches gets flagged and tracked. We'll know exactly what they're planning to alter." Back at the table, Kylan was on his own phone, speaking in hushed tones. He hung up quickly when I returned. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Perfect." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Just finalizing some details for the anniversary party. I want it to be special." "Me too," I said, and for the first time all evening, I meant it. Later that night, as Kylan slept beside me, I slipped out of bed and into my home office. Franklin had texted the details of tomorrow's SEC meeting, along with a warning. Kylan's sister has been suspended pending investigation. Move carefully. I texted back. Time to accelerate the plan? His response was immediate. Yes. She might try to warn him. Be ready. As if on cue, I heard Kylan's phone buzz in the other room. He answered it groggily, but his voice quickly sharpened. What do you mean, suspended? A pause. Who's investigating? Another pause. No, stay quiet. I'll handle it. I slipped back into bed just before he returned, pretending to be asleep as he paced the room, making more calls. My phone lit up silently with messages. Greta. SEC meeting moved up to 8 a.m. Bring everything. Peyton. Thompson spotted shredding documents. Chris intercepted. Chris. Full backup complete. You won't believe what they were planning to delete. I lay there in the dark, listening to my husband's increasingly panicked conversations, feeling not triumph, but a strange sort of sadness. He'd really thought he could take everything my family had built and simply walk away. The anniversary party was 3 days away, but Kylan's world was already beginning to crumble, and he didn't even know it yet. The grand ballroom sparkled with champagne glasses and forced smiles. 50 years of Phillips Industries, celebrated under crystal chandeliers while sharks circled in the depths below. I stood beside Kylan, his hand possessively at my waist, both of us playing our parts to perfection. Wonderful party, Marcus commented, approaching us with his trademark smooth confidence. The Phillips family certainly knows how to celebrate. We do indeed, I replied, noting how Kylan's fingers tightened against my hip, though I'm surprised to see Rivera Technologies represented here tonight. Marcus's smile flickered. Just fostering good relationships between companies. Isn't that right, Kylan? Before Kylan could respond, Peyton appeared at my side. Sorry to interrupt, but the photographer wants the family photos now. If you'll excuse us, I said, letting my sister lead me away. The moment we were out of earshot, she whispered, Thompson's making his move. He's heading to Kylan's office. Chris? Already on it. The cameras are running. I glanced back to see Kylan deep in conversation with Marcus, their faces tense despite their smiles. Across the room, Greta caught my eye and nodded. Everything was in position. Mrs. Phillips? A server approached with a note. This just arrived for you. The message was from Franklin. SEC team in place. Give the signal when ready. I checked my watch. 9:45 p.m. In 15 minutes, I would take the stage to give my anniversary speech. By 10:15, everything would change. Scarlett! Kylan's voice made me jump. He'd appeared beside me silently, his face a mask of concern. We need to talk, privately. He led me to a quiet corner of the ballroom. Something's wrong. The system's locked me out of certain files, and Thompson says, Your IT guy's acting suspicious? I finished for him. Accessing files he shouldn't? Making copies? His face went completely still. What did you do? Me? I smiled, channeling his own brand of artificial sweetness. I'm just the trophy wife, remember? The one you gave a divorce kit to for her birthday. Scarlett, his voice dropped to a dangerous whisper, if you've done anything to interfere with... Ladies and gentlemen! The MC's voice boomed through the speakers. Please take your seats. Mrs. Phillips will now say a few words about this momentous occasion. Kylan grabbed my arm. Don't you dare! Let go of my wife. Chris's voice was quiet but firm. He'd materialized beside us, along with 2 other men I recognized as SEC agents in plain clothes. Kylan released me, his face contorting with rage and realization. You stupid bitch. You have no idea what you've done. Actually, I straightened my dress. I know exactly what I've done. Enjoy the speech, honey. The spotlight felt warm as I took the stage, surveying the room filled with employees, board members, and family friends. I saw Marcus trying to slip away, only to be quietly intercepted by more agents. Thompson was being escorted from Kalan's office by security, and my husband stood frozen, watching his carefully constructed world implode. 50 years ago, I began, my grandfather founded this company on 3 principles: integrity, innovation, and family. Today, we celebrate not just our success, but our commitment to those values. I clicked the remote, and the presentation screen behind me lit up with financial records, emails, and photographs. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. Unfortunately, some people saw our family business as nothing more than an opportunity for personal gain. Tonight, we're not just celebrating our past, we're protecting our future. Kylan started moving toward the exit, only to find his path blocked by Franklin and 2 uniformed officers. The evidence of corporate theft, fraud, and conspiracy has been provided to the SEC and FBI. To those involved, I looked directly at Marcus, then Thompson, and finally Kylan. I suggest cooperating fully. The prosecutors might show leniency. The chaos that erupted was almost beautiful. Marcus attempted to run, making it 3 steps before being tackled by security. Thompson broke down, immediately offering to testify against everyone. And Kylan just stood there, staring at me with a mixture of hatred and something that might have been respect. As the officers led him past me, he paused. I underestimated you. No, I corrected him. You underestimated what people will do to protect their family. I watched them lead him away, then turned back to the stunned crowd. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. The cake will be served shortly. Peyton appeared at my side, grinning. Only you would remember to serve cake after orchestrating a sting operation. Grandfather always said, I smiled, accepting a glass of champagne from Greta, that no celebration is complete without cake. The night wasn't over. There would be statements to make, questions to answer, and a company to rebuild. But for now, I stood with my real family, watching justice unfold while waiters served perfectly cut slices of anniversary cake. Sometimes revenge really is sweet. The morning after the party, I sat in Franklin's office watching the news coverage cycle through clips of Kylan and Marcus being led away in handcuffs. The headlines screamed corporate conspiracy exposed and Phillips Industries scandal rocks business world. The press is having a field day, Franklin said, muting the TV. But we have a bigger problem. Bigger than my husband trying to steal hundreds of millions in patents? I reached for my coffee, my 3rd cup since dawn. Your husband's sister at the SEC? Franklin pulled out a fresh file. She didn't just get suspended, she disappeared. Greta burst through the door, her usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled. Turn on your phone, Scarlett, now. I did, and immediately wished I hadn't. Dozens of missed calls and 1 text message from an unknown number. You think you won? The game's not over, sweetheart. Check your email. My hands shook as I opened my inbox. There it was, a video file from an anonymous sender. Don't, Franklin started, but I'd already clicked play. Kylan's sister appeared on screen, her resemblance to him striking in her cold smile. Hello, Scarlett. By now you've probably realized that my dear brother's arrest isn't the end of this story. You see, while everyone was focused on the patent deal, nobody noticed what we'd already taken. Check your grandfather's private server, the one with all the original designs. Oh wait, you can't, because it doesn't exist anymore. The video ended. I looked at Greta in horror. The Innovation Vault? She was already on her phone. Chris, the backup server in the old building. Check it now. We waited in tense silence until Chris's voice came through the speaker. It's gone. Everything. All the original designs, the prototype plans, everything your grandfather developed before the company went public. They must have copied it all and wiped it clean. Those designs, my voice cracked. They're worth more than the patents. They're the foundation of everything we've built. And now Rivera Technologies has them, Franklin finished grimly. Along with proof of their own illegal activities, I'm betting. Insurance. My phone buzzed again. Another anonymous text. For every action, there's a reaction. Hope you enjoyed your little victory party. Track that number, I told Chris. Already on it. But Scarlett, there's something else. Someone accessed your personal files too. Everything about your family, your accounts, even your medical records. The room spun slightly. I gripped the edge of Franklin's desk. When? During the party, while everyone was distracted by the arrests. Peyton rushed in, waving her phone. Did you see? It's all over social media. Someone's leaking personal details about our family. Dad's old scandals, Mom's addiction struggles. They're trying to destroy our reputation, I realized. Make us look unstable, untrustworthy. It's working, Greta said quietly, showing me her tablet. The company's stock was already dropping. My phone buzzed one more time. Revenge is a game for 2 players. Your move. Call everyone, I said, standing up. Board members, major shareholders, everyone. Emergency meeting in 1 hour. What are you going to tell them? Franklin asked. The truth, that we're under attack, and that we're going to fight back. An hour later, I stood before the boardroom, facing the worried faces of people who'd trusted my family for generations. Yes, we've been hit, I acknowledged. Yes, they took valuable intellectual property, and yes, they're trying to destroy our reputation. But they made one crucial mistake. Which is? One of the board members asked. They thought stealing our past would destroy our future. They forgot that Phillips Industries isn't built on patents or designs. It's built on people, on innovation, on the ability to create something new. I nodded to Chris, who pulled up a presentation. These are the projects we've been developing in secret. New technologies, new solutions, completely separate from anything they stole. And these, I gestured to the room, are the people who made them possible. The tension in the room shifted as understanding dawned. We weren't defeated. We were evolving. As for our reputation, I continued. Yes, my family has struggles. We're human. But we've always been honest about our mistakes and committed to making things right. Can Rivera Technologies say the same? By the time the meeting ended, the stock had stabilized. Our shareholders were standing firm. And I had a new text message, this time from a traced number in the Cayman Islands. Impressive, but this isn't over. No, I murmured, showing the message to Greta. It's just beginning. Because while Kylan's sister thought she was teaching me about consequences, she'd actually taught me something far more valuable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's becoming stronger than they ever imagined you could be. Got her! Chris's voice crackled through my phone at 3 a.m., jolting me awake. Sarah, Kylan's sister. She's in Bermuda, not the Caymans. And she just made a mistake. I was already pulling on clothes. What kind of mistake? She tried to access our new project files using Kylan's old passwords. We traced her exact location. 20 minutes later, I walked into the office to find Greta, Peyton, and Franklin already gathered around Chris's desk, staring at his monitors. Show me, I demanded. Chris pulled up a video feed. This is live from the hotel's security cameras. She's in room 742, and look who just arrived to meet her. The grainy footage showed Marcus's wife entering the hotel, looking nervous. Linda Rivera, Peyton said. Marcus's better half and Rivera Technologies' true majority shareholder. More importantly, Franklin added, she's the only one who can authorize the use of our stolen designs. I smiled for the first time in days. Call the Bermuda authorities, now. Already done, Greta said. But Scarlett, there's more. Show her, Chris. He pulled up another window, a series of emails between Sarah and Linda dating back months before I'd even received the divorce kit. This was their plan all along, Chris explained. Kylan was just the front man. Sarah and Linda were the real architects. They needed someone expendable. And my husband volunteered. I finished bitterly. Perfect fall guy with a convenient motive. The good news, Peyton interjected, is that Linda's meeting Sarah right now to transfer everything. The designs, the documentation, everything they stole. All being tracked in real time. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Ready to negotiate? She doesn't know we've found her, I realized. She thinks she's still in control. Play along, Franklin advised. Keep her talking while the authorities move in. I typed back, Name your price. The response came quickly. Smart girl, $50 million in untraceable cryptocurrency. You have 1 hour. And if I refuse? Then tomorrow morning, Rivera Technologies announces their revolutionary new product line, featuring some very familiar designs. I showed the others the exchange. How long until the authorities can move in? 20 minutes, Franklin said. We just need to keep them in that room. I called Sarah's number. To my surprise, she answered. Bold move, she said by way of greeting. Coming to negotiate personally? Just wondering something. I kept my voice casual. Did Kylan know he was your patsy from the beginning, or did you convince him along the way? A pause. He knew what he was getting into. Did he? Because right now, he's facing 20 years while you're sitting in a luxury hotel, about to make millions from my family's work. Life's not fair, Scarlett. Didn't your grandfather teach you that when he stole his first patent? I gripped the phone tighter. What are you talking about? Oh, you didn't know. Check the files we took. Your precious grandfather built his empire on stolen innovations. Like grandfather, like granddaughter, we all steal what we want. You're lying. Am I? Ask Linda when she gets here. Her father was one of the original victims. This isn't just business, Scarlett. This is justice. I muted the phone, turning to Greta. Is it true? About my grandfather? She shook her head. Your grandfather partnered with Linda's father. They developed those early patents together, but her father sold his share when he got into gambling debt. He later claimed theft to save face. I unmuted the phone. Nice try, Sarah, but I know the truth about Linda's father, just like I know exactly where you are right now. The line went silent for a moment. Then, you're bluffing. Room 742, Paradise Hotel, Bermuda. Blue blouse, white slacks. That coffee you just set down? It's from the cafe across the street. Want me to tell you what Linda's wearing too? I heard movement, then cursing. How? You're good at corporate espionage, Sarah. But next time, don't use hotel Wi-Fi for secure transfers. Oh, and say hello to the Bermuda police for me. They should be knocking on your door right about. A commotion erupted on the other end of the line. Shouts, crashes, Sarah screaming something about diplomatic immunity. Got them, Chris confirmed, watching the security feed. Both Sarah and Linda in custody. And look what Linda dropped trying to run. He zoomed in on a laptop lying open on the hotel room floor, its screen displaying file transfers in progress. Everything they stole, Peyton breathed. All the evidence we need. I slumped in my chair, exhausted but triumphant. Send everything to the FBI, and get me the number for Rivera Technologies' board of directors. Why? Greta asked. Because by this time tomorrow, they'll need new leadership. I smiled grimly. And I have some suggestions about corporate transparency they might want to consider. Sarah's final text came through as the sun rose. You'll regret this. I typed back. No, Sarah. The only thing I regret is not seeing your face when you realized you'd been outplayed. Say hi to Kylan in prison. Then I blocked her number and turned to face the new day. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to deliver the sentences. Kylan sat with his shoulders slumped, his designer suit replaced by prison orange. Beside him, Sarah maintained her icy composure, while Marcus and Linda held hands, their faces ashen. The evidence presented in this case reveals a conspiracy of staggering proportions, the judge began. Corporate theft, fraud, market manipulation, and attempted extortion. I felt Peyton squeeze my hand as we waited. Given the severity and premeditated nature of these crimes, this court sentences the defendants as follows. The judge adjusted his glasses. Kylan Phillips, 18 years. Sarah Matthews, 15 years. Marcus and Linda Rivera, 12 years each. Kylan turned to look at me one last time as they led him away. The smug confidence that had once dominated his features was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Mrs. Phillips, how does it feel to take down your own husband? What's next for Phillips Industries? I stepped up to the microphones, Greta and Peyton flanking me. Today isn't about revenge or personal victories. It's about justice and corporate responsibility. Phillips Industries will continue our grandfather's legacy of innovation and integrity, starting with a new initiative. I nodded to Franklin, who distributed press packets. We're launching the Phillips Innovation Trust, I announced, a program that supports small inventors and entrepreneurs, ensuring their ideas are protected and properly credited, because success shouldn't come at the cost of someone else's dreams. Back at the office, Chris had champagne waiting. To justice, he toasted. To family, Peyton added. Speaking of family, Greta interrupted, checking her phone. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes. Ready to make history? I smoothed my dress. As ready as I'll ever be. The boardroom was packed, every seat filled, every eye on me as I took my place at the head of the table. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, we've weathered a storm that could have destroyed this company. Instead, we're stronger. Our stock has rebounded. Our new projects are exceeding expectations. But most importantly, we've remembered who we are. I clicked through slides showing our latest innovations, all developed after the theft, all revolutionary in their own right. Phillips Industries was never about patents or profits. It was about people, about trust, about building something that matters. I paused, meeting each person's gaze. Today, we make that official. The vote was unanimous. Phillips Industries would become a publicly traded company with an ironclad ethical oversight committee. No single person, not even me, could make major decisions without accountability. As the board members filed out, Greta handed me an envelope. This came while you were in court. Inside was my finalized divorce decree. Just paper, but it felt like freedom. You know, Peyton said, perching on the boardroom table, you never did use that divorce kit he gave you. I laughed. No, I didn't. Turns out I needed something stronger than a DIY solution. Like a team of corporate lawyers and federal agents? Chris suggested. Like family, I corrected. Real family. My phone buzzed. A message from an inmate at the federal prison. You won. Happy now? I showed it to the others. Should I respond? Tell him to enjoy the prison library's copy of Corporate Ethics for Dummies, Peyton suggested. Instead, I typed, I didn't win, Kylan. I just stopped losing. Then I deleted his number and turned to my team, my real family. So, who's hungry? I hear LeBlanc has a table available. Apparently, their regular customers are indisposed. Later that evening, sitting around a table filled with food and laughter, I realized something. The divorce kit that was meant to break me had actually set me free. Not just from Kylan, but from fear itself. Earth to Scarlet! Peyton waved her hand in front of my face. Where'd you go? Just thinking about birthday gifts, I smiled, and how sometimes the worst ones turn out to be exactly what you need. Speaking of gifts, Greta raised her glass, here's to new beginnings. And old friends, Chris added. And family, Franklin finished. To family, we echoed, our glasses clinking in the warm restaurant light. My phone lay silent in my purse. No more threats or manipulations lighting up its screen. Outside, the city sparkled with possibility. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new projects, new opportunities to prove that success doesn't require sacrifice of soul. But tonight? Tonight was for celebrating with the people who stood by me when everything fell apart and helped me build something stronger from the pieces. I raised my glass one more time. To the best birthday gift ever. The truth. And in that moment, surrounded by love and loyalty, I felt truly, completely free.
Could you be the reserved guest I was expecting? I have something crucial to discuss with you. Please, can you spare a moment? As I was about to step into the restaurant, a woman dressed in chef's attire, looking quite anxious, approached me. Initially, I thought she might want to confirm something about my meal, but what she revealed next was utterly unexpected and left me stunned. My name is Cheryl Ruth. I am 33 years old and work in the advertising industry. My job is demanding but fulfilling, as I strive to craft impactful advertisements. I met my husband, Brian, at work. He's just a year older than me, and we've been married for a year now. As a couple with 2 incomes, we share household responsibilities efficiently, supporting each other in managing our lives. Our early interactions were purely professional, but over time, we began to share more personal conversations and discovered our similar interests and values. I developed feelings for him, and fearing that we might drift apart after our joint project ended, I gathered the courage to confess. Despite my anxiety, Brian reciprocated my feelings, and we started dating. After a year, he proposed, and we got married. Before our marriage, Brian disclosed that he had been married before and was now divorced. They had been together for about a year, had no children, and decided to separate due to incompatible values. Brian seemed to regret not making his first marriage work and was somewhat reserved in matters of love, likely due to his past experiences. However, I was understanding and felt that as long as there were no unresolved issues, his past didn't bother me. My desire wasn't just for a happy marriage, but to live my life alongside Brian. So I accepted his history and we proceeded with our wedding. Our married life has been joyful, and we've adapted well to living together. We moved to an apartment conveniently located near both our workplaces, and Brian's parents, who live close by, have been incredibly supportive. Initially, I was worried about potential conflicts from living so close to my in-laws, but they have always been welcoming and kind. Our married life has been smoother than I expected, thanks to our mutual understanding and support. Balancing work and personal time can be challenging, especially during the weekdays when my husband and I have limited leisure time due to our demanding jobs. We often only manage brief conversations over dinner, but we make it a point to maximize our weekends together. Cooking has become one of our favorite activities. We love trying new recipes at home, which has become particularly important given my dietary restrictions. I have a severe allergy to fruits from the Rosaceae family, which includes strawberries, apples, pears, and peaches. This allergy is not just inconvenient, but can be dangerous. It developed unexpectedly when I was an adult. I remember eating a lot of strawberries once, and my mouth swelled up to the point where I struggled to breathe. After a series of tests, the diagnosis of my Rosaceae fruit allergy was a heartbreaking revelation. Discovering that I could no longer enjoy many of my favorite fruits was deeply upsetting. Eating out has become a challenge because even when I think a dish might be safe, these fruits could be hidden ingredients. Just a slight exposure can cause my skin to redden and swell. It's become tedious to continually verify ingredients with restaurants, and I often feel guilty for having to ask. This has led me to develop an aversion to dining out. The fear of accidental exposure and subsequent allergic reactions has made me overly cautious. When my husband and I were dating, I often felt apologetic for my constant need to check ingredients thoroughly. Without such vigilance, I can't fully relax or enjoy meals. However, cooking at home has become a haven. Choosing and preparing ingredients together has become a cherished routine that mitigates my worries. Fortunately, my husband and his parents are incredibly supportive of my situation, which eases a lot of the mental strain. My mother-in-law, in particular, understands allergies very well due to her father's severe wheat allergy. Her empathy and knowledge have been a huge comfort, making my transition into married life smoother and helping me manage my dietary restrictions with less stress. Cooking and eating at home has become a joyful activity for us and a necessary adaptation to ensure my well-being. Allergies can be serious, even life-threatening, so we always take them seriously. My mother-in-law took the time to understand my specific dietary needs and went out of her way to ensure that any meal we shared was safe for me. Whether we were dining at her home or eating out, she took additional precautions to let me enjoy my meals without fear. "You shouldn't have to be scared during meals. I'll make sure everything is safe for you," she assured me once. a gesture that nearly brought me to tears. I've grown to have a wonderful relationship with my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, who treats me as if I were her daughter. We often spend time together, and my husband and his parents are genuinely caring people. Thanks to their efforts, my initial fears about managing my allergies have all but disappeared. One memorable day, I received a promotion at work for a project proposal I initiated, which was a big success. I shared the exciting news with my family, and they were all overjoyed, particularly my mother-in-law. To celebrate, she suggested we go to an upscale restaurant located in a luxurious hotel, an establishment I had dreamt of visiting since my student days. Despite the grandeur, I hesitated because of the extravagant setting and my concerns about the menu. "You don't have to hold back. It's such a joyous occasion. Let me treat you," she insisted, genuinely pleased about my achievement. Her enthusiasm warmed my heart, but I still had reservations. Before my allergy diagnosis, I had browsed the restaurant's website, fantasizing about trying their fruit-filled tart. I knew that the restaurant frequently used fruits from the Rosaceae family in their dishes. While I appreciated my mother-in-law's generosity, the restaurant's penchant for using allergenic ingredients made me nervous. In the past, whenever we dined out, we would inform the staff of my allergies in advance, but I always felt guilty for the extra trouble. We usually opted for places that rarely used fruits from the Rosaceae family to minimize the risk. Even though the restaurant could prepare dishes without these fruits, the thought of a kitchen that regularly handled them was frightening. The potential for cross-contamination was too high a risk for comfort. In the end, my decision leaned towards caution, preferring to celebrate in a way that ensured both safety and enjoyment without the underlying fear. Due to my concerns about a potential allergic reaction, I initially hesitated to accept my mother-in-law's invitation to dine at a high-end restaurant. Nonetheless, she was persistent and reassuring. "Don't worry, I'll inform them about your allergy when I make the reservation. I also know someone there, so they'll take good care of us," she confidently assured me. I was surprised to learn of her connection to the restaurant, as neither she nor my husband had ever mentioned it before. It seemed she preferred to keep such details private. Her enthusiasm, coupled with my curiosity about the restaurant's cuisine, eventually swayed me. Given her consistent consideration of my allergies, I felt a bit more at ease about the idea. When I discussed it with my husband, he was also surprised to hear about his mother's connection, but was reassured knowing that they were informed and would take precautions. "It's a celebration of your promotion, right? Make sure to enjoy yourself," he encouraged with a smile. Although I had initial reservations due to my allergies, the restaurant had always been a place I admired. So with everything arranged, I decided to embrace the occasion. Since our lunch was scheduled on a weekday, I took a half-day off from work. After finishing my morning tasks, I dressed in a more formal outfit than usual, paying extra attention to my appearance. My colleagues noticed my attire and, learning about my plans, wished me a good time. Upon arriving at the hotel, my mother-in-law was already there, waiting. Together, we made our way to the restaurant located on the first floor. Thanks to our reservation, we were immediately escorted to our table. Our reservation was for 2 p.m., but we were informed of a slight delay due to the busy lunch hour. Understanding the popularity of the place, I decided to order just drinks initially and wait patiently. Feeling relaxed after finishing work and buoyed by my mother-in-law's company, I ordered champagne. We engaged in delightful conversation, enjoying the moment and the anticipation of our meal, surrounded by the elegant ambiance of the restaurant. I had enjoyed champagne before, but the glass I sipped that day somehow tasted superior, enhancing my already high spirits. The allure of the restaurant I had long admired, and the tantalizing dishes at nearby tables heightened my anticipation for our meal. Just as I was settling into the moment, the unexpected ring of my phone from inside my bag pulled me back to reality. I hadn't turned it off, and seeing the call was from work, I felt a sudden jolt of sobriety, worried there might be an urgent issue. I excused myself from my mother-in-law and stepped outside the restaurant to take the call, ensuring privacy in case the conversation involved sensitive information. It turned out to be about a document I had submitted earlier. My colleague needed some clarifications. Relieved it wasn't due to an error, I quickly addressed their questions and was about to hang up when an unfamiliar woman approached me. "Excuse me, are you the customer who made a reservation for today's meal at the restaurant?" she asked. Dressed as a chef, presumably from the restaurant's kitchen, she looked rushed and slightly breathless, her expression laden with concern. I was puzzled by her appearance outside the kitchen during such a busy time, but her next words made my heart sink. "It's dangerous to go back to the restaurant now. Please leave the hotel and ensure your safety immediately." Her intense demeanor and urgent warning left me stunned. Seeking further explanation, yet unable to fully grasp the situation under the pressure, I felt the blood drain from my face. Without fully understanding but driven by her insistence on immediate danger, I quickly hailed a taxi in front of the hotel and headed home. That evening, my phone rang again. It was my mother-in-law, and her tone was sharp and furious, something I had never encountered from her before. "You had everything set up to celebrate, and you just left without a word. Don't you know basic manners? What kind of upbringing did you have?" She chastised me, clearly embarrassed and upset that I had left the celebration abruptly without explaining, leaving her to handle the reserved special course on her own. Her words were harsh, and I realized the gravity of the misunderstanding and the strain it had unexpectedly caused. I had always seen my mother-in-law as a kind and gentle woman, but during our phone call there was no hint of that gentle person. I thought she would be concerned about my sudden departure, worried something might have happened to me. Instead, she was furiously yelling, her intensity making me wonder if the rumors I had heard about her might be true. As I stayed quiet, she continued to berate me, criticizing not only me but also my parents and the way they raised me. "You've been silent this whole time. Don't you realize you've done something wrong? You're not fit to be my son's wife," she raged. After a long tirade, she seemed to calm down slightly, and I finally found the courage to speak up. "You told me you had informed the restaurant about my allergies when you made the reservation, and I could relax, right? But the restaurant wasn't aware of my allergies. What happened?" I asked. The reality was that the meal that day included ingredients I was allergic to, not just in the dessert, but also in the main courses, hidden in marinades and sauces. The woman who approached me outside the restaurant had taken the reservation call from my mother-in-law and confirmed that no mention of my allergies had been made. This woman, a chef responsible for our meal that day, had noticed the allergy badge on my bag and came out to check on me, just in case. If she hadn't warned me, I would have unknowingly consumed the food and likely suffered a severe allergic reaction. At first, I couldn't believe my mother-in-law would deliberately put me at risk, but the chef's urgency made me reconsider. Moreover, she revealed something astonishing, that she was my husband's ex-wife, now working under the name Julia. Seeing me with my mother-in-law, she realized I was the new wife and decided to intervene. She told me that my mother-in-law was known for her harsh behavior, something she had experienced during her marriage to my husband. Living with his parents, the ex-wife was constantly criticized by my mother-in-law, especially when my husband or father-in-law wasn't around. Despite her culinary skills, honed at a professional cooking school, my mother-in-law found fault with everything she did, even discarding her dishes on occasion. This revelation painted a very different picture of the woman I had known as gentle and kind. It explained the unexpected hostility and helped me understand the complex dynamics of my new family, prompting a serious reconsideration of how to handle these relationships moving forward. My mother-in-law had always been skilled at masking her true nature, especially in front of my husband, leading the ex-wife to believe that any complaints would be disregarded. Recently transitioned to a full-time housewife, she found herself lacking financial independence and constantly under the vigilant eye of her mother-in-law. Feeling trapped and isolated, with no one to confide in and unable to gather any tangible proof of her mistreatment, she eventually saw divorce as her only escape. Despite having no prior work experience outside the home, she leveraged her culinary training to secure a job at a local restaurant. Over time, as she worked diligently and rose through the ranks to become a skilled chef, the painful memories of her past began to fade, and she started to find joy in her profession. However, years later, her past unexpectedly resurfaced when my mother-in-law discovered where she worked and began frequenting the restaurant. Recognizing her ex-daughter-in-law, she started to subtly threaten her for discounts. While the chef declined these absurd demands, the lingering effects of past traumas made her yield to some of them. This was the connection my mother-in-law referred to when boasting about her influence at the restaurant. When I confronted my mother-in-law about not communicating my allergies to the restaurant, she feigned ignorance. "I knew about your allergies, so I must have told them." "Maybe it was the staff's oversight," she said defensively, attempting to shift the blame onto the restaurant staff. Given that the reservation call was handled by the ex-wife, it seemed probable that my mother-in-law had deliberately omitted to mention my allergies, intending to pin any issues on the restaurant. However, I was prepared for her tactics. Knowing the restaurant's strict guidelines on allergies and their practice of recording calls for dispute resolution, I was confident that the truth could be easily verified. When faced with the possibility of recorded evidence, my mother-in-law was caught off guard and fell silent. I pressed her further. "You've always been so cautious about my allergies. Why didn't you mention them this time?" Until that point, she had always shown a great deal of concern for my well-being, making her actions all the more baffling. After a tense silence, she exploded in defiance. "I despise how you outshine me. You deserve some pain." This shocking admission shattered my perception of our relationship. Her true feelings, hidden under the guise of familial care, revealed a deep-seated resentment towards me. It was a painful realization, and it prompted me to reevaluate the dynamics of our relationship and consider how to address this newfound hostility. My mother-in-law's envy had surfaced because I received praise at work and was more liked in the neighborhood than she was. She arrogantly claimed that even if I spoke out, no one would believe me. Without this incident, I might never have realized she was capable of such deceitful actions. Fortunately, I had gathered evidence that could reveal her true nature, and I confronted her with it, confident that I had the support of my family. In the presence of my parents and my husband, Brian, I had this confrontation. This conversation was being recorded. Everyone present heard how she berated me and her intentions to deliberately expose me to allergens. After the incident at the restaurant, I immediately went to my parents' house and had Brian join us. We were discussing our next steps when she called, so I quickly switched the call to speakerphone and began recording for evidence, capturing her incriminating statements. Taken aback by my revelation, she asked in a shaky voice, "Wait, is Brian there with you?" She had not expected her son to be listening. Responding to her, Brian, who had been silently collecting evidence, finally spoke up. "I heard everything. I can't believe you would do something like this, Mom," he said, his voice tinged with suppressed anger. She hastily began making excuses, saying, "It wasn't like that, I didn't mean it," but her attempt sounded desperate and insincere, especially after her earlier outburst. Brian's anger was evident as he declared, "I don't even want to think of you as my mother anymore. We're cutting ties." Shocked by the true nature of the mother he had trusted, Brian was beyond furious. He then announced his estrangement from her, ignoring her cries. Moreover, my parents stated they would sue her for attempted murder. Brian ended the call, disregarding her continued pleas. Later, when Brian informed his father about the incident, his father was also furious and suggested they separate, eventually evicting her from their home. With no relatives to rely on, no income, and having been a housewife, she found herself in a desperate position. Her husband, feeling a final bit of pity, arranged a basic apartment for her, paid the first month's rent, and told her to find work so she could support herself. However, lacking the motivation to work and still trying to cling to Brian and me, she barged into our house one day, demanding money. This ongoing drama highlighted the need for us to set firm boundaries and protect ourselves from further manipulation and harm. We firmly sent her away, insisting that she should earn her living, particularly Brian, who was extremely stern to ensure she wouldn't approach our house again. Later, rumors suggested she started working at a nearby supermarket, but she appeared quite disheveled and alone, struggling to adjust to her new circumstances. Despite her challenges, I hope she continues to work diligently, not only for her expenses, but also to compensate us for the trouble she caused. I prefer that she remains out of our lives permanently. The root of her actions seemed to stem from jealousy. She wanted to see me suffer, perhaps because my independence and success contrasted sharply with her situation. Jay's ex-wife, who had moved in with his family after graduating from vocational school, was quiet and submissive, often bearing the brunt of her mother-in-law's unpleasant demeanor and bullying nature. In contrast, I am independent, actively working and receiving promotions. I enjoy a higher social status and am well regarded in our neighborhood. Initially, she appeared to approve of me, seeing me as a competent daughter-in-law. However, her feelings shifted to envy as she realized she couldn't bully me. She longed to see me in a diminished position, one that would allow her to look down on me. After the explosive call during which Brian and his father confronted her, she confessed everything, leading to their decision to cut ties with her. Later, Brian reached out to his ex-wife to apologize for not noticing the bullying she endured under his mother's roof. At that time, he was new at his job and blindly trusted his mother, which obscured his perception. He regretted his oversight, but his ex-wife reassured him that she had moved on. She's now dating someone and is happy, which brings peace to their conversation. Through this ordeal, I became friends with Brian's ex-wife. She's career-oriented and we get along well. Despite her being his ex, there are no concerns about their past relationship, and I am glad to have a friend close in age. After resolving the issues with his mother, Brian and his father threw me a promotion party. It was a lovely gesture that made me feel appreciated and supported by them. This celebration reaffirmed my resolve to continue working hard, free from the worries about my former mother-in-law's interference. Please make sure the loan repayment is handled. While I was busy at work, an unexpected email suddenly appeared. I immediately contacted Bruce, who started explaining calmly. "Oh, sorry about that," he said. "I've fallen for someone else and have decided to start a new life with her." He also disclosed his intention to take the luxury car that was recently purchased under my name with a loan. Despite my attempts to talk him out of it, my husband ignored my pleas, abruptly ended our conversation, and became unreachable. Eventually, Bruce vanished with his new partner, leaving behind a considerable amount of debt for me. As the mother of our 9-year-old son, I was stunned by this unfair turn of events. At 38 years old, my name is Tiffany, and my husband, Bruce, who is of the same age, left our family, which includes our bright son, Russell. Russell has always shown exceptional intelligence, engaging with academic articles and discussing complex issues from a young age. On the other hand, Bruce was never stable, struggling to keep a steady job. Despite my steady full-time employment and our future plans, Bruce had only recently maintained a stable income for about 4 years. Bruce had often talked about making lasting memories together as a family, which led us to decide to purchase a $110,000 camper van. However, Bruce failed to meet the finance company's requirements for a loan, so I had to take it out in my name. On the day the camper van was delivered, I received a shocking email from Bruce stating he would take the van since the loan was in my name and that I would be responsible for the repayments. Confused, I called him immediately, only to hear him confess that he had fallen in love with another woman and decided to pursue a relationship with her. I thought it was just a fleeting thing, but it turned serious, so I'm planning to start a new life with her, he said, and mentioned the divorce papers that we had argued about before. He stated his intention to file them and abruptly ended the call. This conversation was the first time I realized the depth of Bruce's betrayal, a truly shocking moment. All my subsequent attempts to contact him were fruitless, and I was left to face this harsh new reality alone when I returned home from work. When I went to check the drawer where the divorce papers should have been, I found it empty. The papers were gone, and I was left grappling with the huge debt from a $110,000 car loan. Despite my countless attempts to contact my husband through emails and calls, "You sad?" "No, I kind of understood from how things were going," Russell replied, his tone detached as if he had foreseen the events. Although he seemed unfazed by the prospect of our family's separation, I knew deep down it had to affect him. Silently apologizing to Russell in my thoughts, I tried desperately to distract myself from the turmoil. Yet, my body betrayed my emotional strain and my health began to decline. There was a training session at work that day, but I couldn't stand up. "Sorry, I can't stand right now. I need to take a break," I managed to say before collapsing. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a hospital room. The doctor informed me that I needed detailed examinations and admitted me for further observation. Lying there, staring at the IV drip and the hospital's white ceiling, tears began to flow freely. Just then, Russell burst into the room, his face etched with worry. Seeing him so distressed, I quickly wiped my tears. "Mom, what happened? Is it serious? You're not going to die, right?" His voice trembled with fear. "Of course not. I wouldn't leave my dear son alone," I reassured him, my voice soft but firm. "That's good. I was so scared when the school teacher called to say you were taken to the hospital," Russell admitted, his relief palpable. Seeing his concern, I realized just how much Russell was affected by everything happening around us, and it strengthened my resolve to handle our challenges more openly with him. The shock was so intense that it felt like my heart might stop. Russell, despite being mature beyond his years, was still just a 9-year-old boy. His concern spurred a strong resolve in me to recover, but my health was deteriorating faster than I expected. After a thorough checkup, the doctors diagnosed me with a serious illness and recommended immediate surgery. Following their advice, I underwent the procedure. A month had passed since Bruce left by the time I was discharged from the hospital. Returning home, I opened the mailbox, only to find a demand letter for the car loan payment. I had assumed these payments were being automatically deducted from my account. Panicking, I checked my account balance with my cash card. Shockingly, what was once $42,000 had dwindled to just $54. I thought to myself, Bruce did this. I want to ask him to return the money, but I can't reach him. What should I do? Without the camper van, selling it to recover the funds wasn't an option. As I sank deeper into despair over these misfortunes, Russell noticed my distress. He placed his hand on my forehead and asked, "You look pale. Are you feeling sick again? You don't seem to have a fever, though." "I'm physically fine, but your father took not only the car, but all the money we had saved. I can't work due to my condition, and now we have no money," I explained, feeling overwhelmed. Seeing my predicament, Russell's face lit up with determination. "I see. Then I'll deliver newspapers and search the internet to see if there's any work I can do," he declared. His spirit and resolve encouraged me. It's not the time to be down, I told myself, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Sorry for worrying you. I can't afford to be weak. I'll change my mindset and try to do whatever I can, I said, managing a smile for him. Russell smiled back and then suggested something unexpected. Let's plan how to get the car back from Dad. How can we do that? The camper van is in your name, right? He asked. Yes, but what about it? Then maybe we can? Russell began, suggesting an idea I hadn't even considered, something completely out of the box. I was stunned. Also, I have no idea where your father is, I admitted, the reality of our situation settling in. Despite the challenges, Russell's creative thinking and proactive attitude gave me hope that perhaps there was a way to navigate through this crisis. So let's check my phone, I suggested, remembering how a month ago, when we went hiking as a family, Russell felt a bit disoriented. Surprisingly, the usually reliable Russell had felt lost during that hike. Based on that experience, we bought him a child's cell phone and installed a GPS app on it, which both Bruce and I could access. With this app, I can see where Dad is in real time, and he's been moving around a lot. Oh, is that so? But what if we find him and he just gives us a vague answer and escapes again? I mused, trying to think ahead. Don't worry, Russell smiled, revealing a hint of a plan. I've already taken precautions. What did you just say? I was taken aback by his initiative. To my amazement, Russell had independently taken action while I was in the hospital, something truly astonishing. I can't believe such a clever child is mine, I thought, impressed by his foresight and resourcefulness. He had even kept tabs on Bruce's whereabouts, including his movements with his mistress. All right, let's teach Dad a lesson for betraying us, I agreed, bolstered by Russell's confidence. Okay, let's start the plan right away, I responded, and together we prepared for what was to come. With Russell by my side, I felt unstoppable. Bring it on, anywhere, anytime, I thought to myself. 5 days later, my phone rang. Ah, it's me. Please, I need your help. Who might this be? I played along, even though I knew the voice all too well. Don't play dumb, it's your husband. I'm being questioned by the police because of you. At this rate, they might ask me to come to the police station voluntarily. Help me out. Oh, is that so? Just wait a moment then, I replied, maintaining my composure. I immediately went with Russell to the location Bruce had mentioned. To my surprise, it was a forest park near our house, a popular camping spot. There, Bruce was being questioned by the police in front of his car, looking utterly bewildered. Feeling a mix of pity and resolve, I approached the police. We need to talk about a couple. Could you please give us a moment? I asked, and they stepped away. Inside the car, Bruce's mistress sat cross-legged, glaring at us, but her presence no longer mattered. Sorry about that. Thanks for coming. But why did the police suddenly show up at my place? I don't get it, Bruce stammered, confused. That's because I filed a report about the missing camper van, I explained calmly. What? Why would you do that? He asked, bewildered. It's obvious, isn't it? My car was stolen, I stated matter-of-factly. Bruce, foolishly thinking that actions between spouses couldn't be criminal, began to utter nonsensical excuses. But the world isn't that naive, you know. You filed for divorce, remember? So we're practically strangers now, and driving a stranger's car without permission is a crime, I explained, as Russell had cleverly figured out. Russell, typical for his sharp mind even at a young age, had pieced everything together. But I didn't steal the car, I just borrowed it for a bit, Bruce protested weakly. Oh, is that so? Well, I'd like to use my car now, so could you return it? That would be helpful, I said, extending my hand for the keys. Bruce, though reluctant, handed them over after a moment. With the keys safely in my possession, Russell, who had been quiet up until now, began to question his father. Hey, why did you abandon your family and choose to run off with her? He asked, his voice steady but curious. Caught off guard by his son's blunt question, Bruce was visibly flustered and awkwardly scratched his head. This prompted Bruce's mistress to chuckle smugly and interject, "It's because I'm more attractive than your mother. Look at me. You can see it, right?" He fell head over heels for me and decided to leave his family. "Quiet." "I didn't ask you, old lady." "Dad, you answer," Russell commanded with a stern tone. Julia was silenced by Russell's firm directive, but Bruce remained silent. "If you can't explain, that's fine. I'll just have the police come back and take you," I threatened, seeing his hesitation. "Wait, hold on. Okay, I'll talk," Bruce finally conceded. Julia, it turns out, joined Bruce's company 2 months ago. They were attracted to each other and became involved at the welcome party for new employees. Later, it was discovered that Julia was pregnant, and Bruce decided to start a new life with her, leaving us behind. "Why did you take the camper van?" I pressed on. "I quit my job and thought about selling the car for money, but it seems like you were using it quite a bit, weren't you?" "I thought it was a waste to sell it right away, so we decided to go on a trip," Bruce explained. "Wait, how do you know all this?" he asked, puzzled. "Remember when Russell got lost? After that, as a precaution, we bought him a kid's cell phone and installed a GPS app. Did you forget? We installed it on your phone too, so I knew where you were all this time," I revealed. By the way, I later found out from Russell that he had pretended to get lost during our family hike, a clever move that helped us prepare for any future uncertainties. I was stunned by Russell's ability to think ahead and his strategic actions. "I suspected something was off with Dad, so I came up with this plan to monitor his actions," he explained with a calm that belied his age. "You are a formidable child," I remarked, half joking, half serious. "I hope never to become an adult like Dad, who betrays important people without a second thought." Bruce, faced with the harsh reality Russell presented, looked pitiful and was unable to offer any defense. In contrast, seeing Russell, only 9, but speaking and thinking with such clarity and firmness gave me a profound sense of strength and resolve. As a mother, I felt I couldn't back down, especially when it came to settling things properly. "Also, return the $42,000 you withdrew from my account right now. That was our joint property as a couple," I demanded. "I don't have to return it," Bruce retorted stubbornly. "No, it's not like that. The money was what I saved bit by bit since I was single. After all, you always quit your jobs midway, so we hardly ever saved money together, did we?" I countered, my voice firm. Hearing that the $42,000 had been squandered by Bruce and his mistress was appalling, but it also made me feel relieved about the decision to divorce him. That's how it is. But if you've stolen and used the car and my money, that's going to be a serious crime, I continued. "What? I just sent the police away, so it's not their business anymore, right?" Bruce tried to dismiss the issue. "I only said we would talk. I have no intention of withdrawing the complaint. I must add the theft of my money to the report," I asserted. "Russell, should I call the police now? I can do it with just one button on my phone." Julia, Bruce's mistress, had been silently observing our conversation but quickly tried to exit the camper van. At that moment, she let out a scream that echoed around us. The reason was startling. Outside the car door, Julia's parents stood, their faces red with anger, ready to explode in fury. Startled, she stepped back as her parents began to yell at her. I'm sorry, don't be so angry, but why are you here, Mom and Dad?" "I called your parents beforehand," I revealed, watching the scene unfold. "What? Why?" Julia stammered, taken aback. The truth was, during my hospital stay, Russell had visited Bruce's office and tearfully told Julia's parents, "My dad left the house with another woman." This preemptive move by Russell had brought everything to this pivotal moment, turning the tables on Bruce and Julia dramatically. In the wake of Russell's visible distress and frail demeanor, the staff at Bruce's office had grown suspicious of Julia, who had recently departed the company alongside Bruce. They had noticed the pair being overly friendly and even shared photos of them looking cozy at the welcome party for new employees. Learning from her colleagues that Julia still commuted from her parents' home, Russell managed to obtain her parents' address. With this information, Russell and I visited her parents, armed with a photo of Julia. When we met them, I explained everything that had transpired. Thus, today, after contacting Julia's parents again, I asked them to stay nearby for a while, ready to confront their daughter. "How could you do this to me?" Julia exclaimed, her face a mix of shock and betrayal. "I don't want to hear that from you. That's my line," I retorted. Then, noticing her pronounced belly, I couldn't help but ask, "By the way, your stomach seems quite big. When is the baby due?" "In 2 months," she replied, flustered. "Wait a minute, that doesn't add up. You and my husband met only 2 months ago. What's going on?" The timeline was off and everyone sensed it. This was the first time Bruce heard of the due date, and he stared at Julia with wide eyes. "Wait, what does that mean? Are you stupid? Don't you get it? It takes about 8 months from conception to birth, which means the child she's carrying isn't yours." "You're so foolish," I pointed out, the realization dawning on him. Julia, now cornered, retorted, "What do you mean? Have you been deceived?" "Oh, I almost got away with it," she confessed with a scoff, her demeanor shifting to resignation. "Can't help it now that I'm caught. You're so naive, you can't see through lies at all. A fool." "Don't mock me. My whole life is ruined because of you. What were you thinking?" Bruce blurted out, his frustration boiling over. Bruce and Julia then started a heated argument, but no one intervened, allowing them to air out their grievances. Meanwhile, we contacted the police again to update them on the situation. As dusk turned to night, the area was illuminated by the red lights of police cars approaching the scene. "No, really, I was wrong. I'm truly sorry. I'll work hard and never cheat again, so please just don't arrest me," Bruce pleaded, desperation in his voice. "People don't change that easily, especially lazy people like you," Russell chimed in, wise beyond his years. "Exactly, Russell's right. I can't trust you," I affirmed, standing firm in the chaotic unraveling of truths. Reflecting on the situation, I firmly told Bruce, "Think about your actions and prepare to face the consequences at the police station. If I get arrested, I won't be able to pay back the money. Is that okay with you?" Bruce pleaded, looking for any leverage to avoid accountability. "I don't mind. Pay me back after you've served your time for your crimes. Take your time. Don't worry. I've already found you a job," I responded calmly, outlining a clear path forward for restitution. "Let's see, there's Russell's child support plus the $42,000 you owe me. I'm not sure how much it will all add up to, but you'll work and pay it all back." Turning to Julia, the mistress, I had one last thing to say. "You might think you're just an observer here, but don't forget you're an accomplice to Bruce's theft. Be prepared for the consequences." When I mentioned that Julia would have to pay if Bruce couldn't return the stolen money, she shivered with fear. Julia sought help from her parents, but they sternly refused, declaring, "We disown a daughter who causes trouble for others." Thus, Bruce and Julia were taken away in a police car, thanks to the smart strategy devised by Russell. Although they were released from detention soon after, they faced a substantial financial obligation to me. Through a lawyer, I claimed $42,000 in damages. Additionally, I secured an agreement from Bruce to pay $1,000 a month in child support for Russell. I also introduced Bruce to a subcontracting factory associated with the company I work for. The support payments and other charges I claimed from Bruce would be deducted directly from his salary and deposited into my account. Furthermore, I sold the camper van, liberating myself from the associated auto loan. Since these changes, my health has improved remarkably. I am now more energetic and committed to my job than ever. Russell, too, has been actively helping with household chores and errands. We are both committed to moving forward strongly so that Russell can pursue whatever path he loves without any hindrances. When James arrived home that evening, his expression was somber as he shared the news of his demotion. I nearly dropped my cup of tea in surprise. We had sensed that his company's recent downturn and upcoming restructuring might lead to changes, but I hadn't imagined it would affect us so personally. As his wife, I knew my support was more important than ever during such a challenging time. "It's just bad luck, and times are hard," I reassured him with a smile, trying to keep the mood light. "Besides, I'm still working, so there's no need to worry too much." I'm Anna, 46 years old, and work full-time in a back office. I live with James, who is 4 years older than me, our high school sophomore daughter, Stephanie, and my 70-year-old mother-in-law, Linda. Although Linda and I sometimes clash, our interactions are minimal since I spend most of my day at work, so I choose not to let it bother me too much. To Stephanie, I explained, "Your dad is a bit upset about his job, but let's try to keep things normal around him." However, James began to express his frustrations more openly, often directing his upset feelings toward those he trusted most, including me. The next day, as I was cleaning the hallway on my day off, James passed by and made a cutting remark about my weight. "You've put on some weight since we got married, haven't you?" he said sharply. "Well, I am 46, you know. It's normal around menopause," I replied calmly, noting that my recent health checkup showed that I was not overweight, but his next words were hurtful. "Forget the health checkup. You look unsightly and it's embarrassing," he snapped, before calling me ugly and retreating to his room. I was left in shock, pinching my side in disbelief. It was true that I could pinch an inch of my waist, but his sudden harshness felt like a piercing arrow. I was overwhelmed by the intensity of his words, and it hurt deeply to hear such things from someone I loved and supported. In the turmoil, I had completely forgotten that I was holding the window squeegee, which slipped from my grasp and clattered loudly on the hallway floor. From that day forward, James's behavior towards me became increasingly harsh. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law, having overheard our argument that weekend, decided it was her place to get involved, and the tension in the house escalated. One day, as I climbed the stairs with a laundry basket intent on hanging the clothes to dry, I found my mother-in-law waiting at the top, rather than at the bottom of the stairs. With a sigh of disapproval, she commented, "Oh, how dreadful. If only you weren't so overweight, we could pass each other easily on the stairs. I wouldn't have to wait here blocked by your size." During dinner, as I served chicken tenders, she pointedly remarked, "Isn't this the type of food that's contributing to your weight gain?" And without waiting for my response, she took my plate away, insisting that only the non-overweight family members should eat. According to my gynecologist, it's normal to gain or lose weight after middle age, yet my mother-in-law, who was as slender as a dried-up tree, seemed to ignore these natural changes and continued her relentless taunts. Despite the discomfort, I had grown somewhat used to these annoyances. However, what truly pained me was the shift in my husband's behavior. Since the incident, James stopped talking to me altogether. He expressed no gratitude and offered no compliments, not even during the meals I prepared. He would eat in silence and leave the table without a word. Even our shared spaces like the bathroom and bedroom felt isolating as he would come and go silently, turning his back to me each night to bury himself in his smartphone. Feeling increasingly invisible, one night I gathered the courage to confront him in our bedroom. "Is there a reason you're ignoring me?" I asked tentatively. His response was chillingly indifferent. "Not really, but I prefer not to engage much at home," he replied coldly. He then added more harshly, "I don't want to be associated with someone in the family who is this overweight. If you truly care about me, you'll lose some weight." His words were disheartening. Despite my daily walk of 1.5 miles to commute, his lack of understanding and empathy weighed heavily on me. Age, I knew, brought inevitable changes, but his coldness felt like an unbridgeable gap between us. I've been doing everything I can to manage my weight, especially considering the typical gains that come with age. Despite this, James simply turned away, dismissing my efforts as if they were nothing. "If you're not seeing results, you might as well not be trying," he said sharply. "Don't speak to me anymore." From then on, he truly ceased to acknowledge my existence. My mother-in-law, meanwhile, continued her relentless jibes about my diet. Whenever meat, fruits, or rice appeared on the table, she would scrutinize my choices. Are you supposed to eat that? Do you realize what you're doing to yourself? Eventually, I found myself relegated to eating just salads and boiled vegetables, while James sat silently, mechanically moving his chopsticks, not uttering a single word. As our marriage seemed to be disintegrating, I began to pack my belongings in quiet moments, thinking that perhaps it was time to leave. If this was how James wanted to treat me, maybe disappearing was the best response. When I shared these thoughts with my daughter, she immediately offered her support. I understand, Mom. It's painful to watch Grandma and Dad constantly picking on you. I'll come with you. We can live with your parents, and I can still go to high school from there. Just as I was preparing for what seemed like the end, James approached me with a rare smile, suggesting we had a drink together. Tomorrow is the first day of my demotion, after all. Let's have a drink just this once, he said, trying to lighten the mood as he proposed making mimosa for dinner. It might have been the first time he'd directly spoken to me since announcing his demotion. Stephanie can have juice, and I'll fix a mimosa for you, Anna, he said, placing the drinks on the table. But his sudden change of behavior felt odd and out of place. As he turned his back to grab the TV remote, I discreetly sniffed the drink he'd poured for me. There was a faint but unmistakable scent that I recognized from my own cooking experiences. Anger flared within me. How could he think to serve me this? I had reached my breaking point. Between my mother-in-law's constant harassment and James's prolonged neglect, I could no longer tolerate the situation. It was time for a change, a significant one, not just for my well-being, but also for my daughter's future. The moment I saw the mimosa, my patience reached its limit. James, could you please fetch the Beaufort cheese from the fridge? I asked gently. It's from the local dairy farm and it's delicious. It'll be nice for our family time. Would you mind getting it? My tone was hopeful, suggesting a semblance of normalcy and cooperation in our strained household dynamics. As James headed to the fridge, I seized the opportunity to discreetly swap my drink with the one placed on the seat next to mine, previously intended for Linda. When he returned with the cheese, I brightly announced, "Now that we have our snacks, I'll go call Stephanie and Linda. Dinner's ready." My voice carried through the house, beckoning them to the dining room. They joined us shortly, and we all settled around the table. Unlike the usual fare, tonight's dinner featured chicken noodle soup, Beaufort cheese, and the mimosa, with Stephanie opting for juice. "Let's dig in," Stephanie said, breaking the silence that hung between the adults. I took a sip of the swapped mimosa, noting James watching me intently. With a forced smile, I commented, "Yeah, it's quite good." James mumbled a response, but I chose to ignore him, focusing instead on my salad. I took another sip of the mimosa. Suddenly, a stream of red liquid burst from Linda's mouth, reminiscent of a scene from a monster movie. "Wait, Grandma, what happened?" Stephanie exclaimed, jumping up in surprise as some of the liquid splattered onto her salad. "Did you choke? Are you okay?" Stephanie quickly fetched a towel and returned, offering it to Linda, who was wiping her mouth in shock. "What is this, Grandma? Your mouth. It looks like a spicy cobra," Stephanie said, her concern escalating. He put it in my drink," Linda shouted, attempting to reach for me, but I deftly brushed her hand away. "It wasn't me. James made the drinks," I replied calmly, redirecting the blame to where it truly belonged. This revelation seemed to stun Linda. "What?" she screamed, her lips still stained from the sauce, as she turned to glare at James, who was now visibly trembling. Leaning towards him, I rested my hand on the table, adding a bit of pressure. "You thought you could sneak it into the mimosa, didn't you?" I accused softly. I could detect the slight difference, even though it was subtle. The tension at the table was palpable, as James's deceptive attempt was unveiled, shifting the dynamics of our strained evening. I had recognized the taste instantly. It was that hot sauce from Georgia, the one with a hint of lime that I found more appealing than the more famous death sauce. That was a dash of hell, wasn't it? I confronted James firmly, referring to the sauce I discovered at a food fair, known for its fiery kick softened by subtle lime undertones. That hint of lime was what I picked up, I explained, clarifying how I detected his sneaky addition to the drink. My mother-in-law probably didn't notice due to the aroma of the mimosa, or perhaps she thought the lime was meant to be part of the drink's flavor. Regardless, this was an incredibly vicious prank. Wait, Dad did that? Stephanie looked at us, her face etched with disbelief. James, looking cornered, confessed, I intended for Anna to have it. You should switch it with yours. His words were almost desperate, revealing the malicious intent behind his act. Just because she realized it was meant for me, she wants to pass it off to me? I'm not touching that dangerous concoction, I stated firmly, keeping the pressure on James. And why exactly did you think pulling such a stunt was acceptable? I pressed him further. You were putting on weight, and spicy food can boost metabolism, so I figured I'd give it a try. James tried to justify his actions. Pathetic, I scoffed, dismissing his feeble excuse as utterly embarrassing. Under the weight of the pressure, James shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I'm not crazy. This is a legitimate reason to support your diet. Here, swap your cup with mine and have a taste. I made it for you, he urged, trying to persuade me to accept his rationale. Retreating slightly as he saw my unwavering stance, he added, What are you implying? As the one who prepared it, you should be the one to sample it. Come on. Rising from my seat, I grabbed the cup containing the fiery concoction meant for my mother-in-law and placed it firmly in front of my husband. After ignoring me and treating me as if I've been invisible for so long, did you honestly expect me to drink something you claimed to make with a smile out of the blue? Did that not occur to you, in your empty head? Isn't it all too childish? Come on, taste it. As the one who brewed it, take some responsibility. The tension in the room thickened as I closed the gap, demanding accountability for the first time in a long while. I slammed my hand down on the table, the sound echoing through the room. In response, James, likely trying to avoid the escalating confrontation, rose from his chair and stepped back. Amidst the ensuing tense silence, a soft yet firm voice emerged. It was our daughter, Stephanie, her words sounding strained as though it took her immense effort to voice them. Taking out your frustration on Mom, who supports you the most when work gets tough, and subjecting her to repeated cruel treatment, it's like a childish prank. I might not be supposed to say this to my parents, but it's too immature and unbearable to witness, she said. Stephanie stood up, addressing her father directly. Is it wrong to struggle with weight? Mom wakes up early, walks to work, and even packs her lunch. It's not fair to say she's not making an effort. She then turned to face her grandmother. And you, going along with it, taking away Mom's dinner like the chicken tenders incident? What Grandma is doing is reminiscent of high school drama. It's embarrassing, she remarked firmly. Flustered, Linda began to offer a confused excuse. That's not it. I'm just concerned about Stephanie's mom not gaining any more weight. I want her to feel positive about herself in front of her granddaughter. Besides, Stephanie, like you, is also struggling with weight. But Stephanie remained resolute. Compassion is about understanding and supporting the other person. It pains me to see Mom's dinner taken away, especially when she looks so upset. That's not compassion. Mom hasn't had any health issues in her checkups, yet taking away her food is just plain mean. Linda fell silent, seemingly taken aback by Stephanie's words. Stephanie then turned her attention back to her father. Mom goes to the gynecologist regularly and stays active. Yet, Dad, you just brush her aside because she's gained a bit of weight. What's up with that? Your indifference creates such tension in the house. Can't you see it? She continued, her voice growing more passionate. Even Raymond and Aunt Kayla from the cookie ads are on the plump side. Ever heard of happy weight? If Mom becomes a lovely grandmother like Aunt Kayla as she gets older, I'd be overjoyed. When I have kids and she's a grandma, wouldn't it be wonderful to say, Mom, you've reached some happy weight? Stephanie's words, filled with frustration yet brimming with love, highlighted the absurdity of the situation and the need for empathy and understanding within the family. And share a laugh, that's my dream. Please don't ruin it for me, Stephanie stated matter-of-factly, her gaze unwavering. Despite the straightforwardness of her delivery, her words enveloped my heart with warmth. Reminiscent of sipping hot milk with cookies on a cold day, it was a sorrowful sight, a father being admonished by his daughter. Stephanie continued, turning her focus directly on her happy because that's part of my dream. So please let it go, be happy and fulfill my dream. Her plea filled my heart with such warmth and joy that the previous concerns, being ignored by my husband, the fat shaming from my mother-in-law, or the drink incident, suddenly seemed trivial. Warm tears streamed down my cheeks. Yes, you're right, I agreed, my vision blurred with tears. Come on, Mom, she added, patting my back gently, urging me forward. Oh, okay, I mumbled as I retrieved a document I had been concealing for some time. What? My husband exclaimed, startled. After enduring a month of being ignored, I had reached a decision. I have my bags packed. Let's go our separate ways, I declared, presenting the divorce papers with only my name written on them. I just wanted you to lose some weight. If you had slimmed down as I asked, I would have been satisfied, my husband confessed, a note of panic creeping into his voice. It was only when Stephanie pointed it out that I realized he was venting. But since you didn't shed any pounds, I thought I'd torment you further. I didn't mean for it to. I didn't expect this outcome, he added. Those who fail to notice until things escalate are the ones acting incredibly immature, Stephanie retorted sharply, her words slicing through the tension. Living without her beloved granddaughter was no laughing matter. Stephanie, dear, you wouldn't want to keep living with us, Linda interjected softly, her voice as gentle as stroking a cat, hinting at the deep emotions stirring beneath the surface. Stephanie responded decisively to Linda's plea, her voice firm. I decline. I no longer wish to share the same space with people who act like they're in middle school. James, sensing the seriousness of the situation, hesitated before saying, Okay, hold on. I understand. I'll taste it as you suggest. I'll take responsibility as the one who prepared it. With that, he picked up the glass before him and downed its contents in one gulp. The sauce was as fiery as promised, causing him to eject a stream of red liquid from his mouth, leaving him with a set of lobster-like lips. There, see? I took responsibility, didn't I? James declared, trying to salvage some pride. Stephanie, quick to capture the moment, snapped a picture of both James and Linda with their reddened lips and remarked, You both look so ridiculous. Then she turned to me, Mom, let's go, before swiftly exiting the living room. I'll follow her lead, I agreed, leaving behind a dinner table splattered with the wine cocktail mixed with the fiery sauce, along with a husband and mother-in-law, both sporting lobster-like lips. We returned to my parents' house, where I explained everything. Both my mother and father were incensed and decided to confront James and Linda. They brought back the divorce papers, and I ultimately went through with the divorce. In the following years, my ex-husband James's career hit rock bottom with no notable achievements, a pattern of behavior, ignoring issues, that I discovered was not just at home, but also at his work, contributing to his earlier demotion. My ex-mother-in-law, Linda, who had always been challenging and rarely left the house, found herself stuck in a stalemate, living only with James. Eventually, I received a call from her, tinged with regret. Things wouldn't be so dull if you and Stephanie were here, she said, reflecting on the 15 years since Stephanie's birth and the time we all lived together. Please come back. I'll stop ignoring you. However, I had no intention of returning. Enjoy indulging while you can. Once you have grandchildren, you'll have more physical work to do, My mother joked with a smile, highlighting how life had moved on. Today, like every day, I'm walking to work, enjoying the brisk morning air. Along the way, my boss drives by and stops his car, offering me a ride. No, thank you. I decline, sticking to my routine, which has become part of my new lifestyle. Just get in, Anna, he insists, but today is different. I found a new boyfriend, someone who respects and supports me, unlike my past. I proudly share that both of us have gone through divorces, which surprisingly has deepened our connection and mutual understanding. Dieting is wonderful, but he also has a knack for punctuality. As he drives, he mentions, being late could be a problem. I've never been late before, I respond, puffing up my cheeks defensively. He looks over at me and with a playful gesture gently pokes my inflated cheek. How about you give me the time you save by riding in the car today for a little extra conversation? He suggests with a teasing smile, always the conversationalist in our relationship. Hey, shouldn't you be helping out more around the house? If this is the type of spouse you're going to be, maybe it's better if you leave, my mother-in-law snapped, her words sharp and her stare piercing. I was taken aback by her harsh tone. Beside her, my sister-in-law chimed in dismissively, You always look exhausted and seem to get nothing done. Feeling overwhelmed, I turned to my husband, Matthew, for support. This is too much, don't you think? Your mom and sister are being harsh, I said, hoping for some understanding. Matthew's response only added to my distress. I agree with them, he said bluntly. I'm swamped with work and it's a problem that you're not helping more at home. Besides, things are going well with the new part-time worker. And frankly, you're just slowing us down. Maybe you should find somewhere else to stay. Stunned by Matthew's words, I looked around at the three of them, feeling their judgment weigh heavily on me. A rush of anger surged through me, but I took a deep breath, calmed myself, and replied, I need some time to think. My name is Lori, and I'm 35 years old. I'm dedicated to both my job and managing household chores. It's common for women to work after getting married, and I love my job deeply, aiming to excel in the company I joined right after graduating from college. One morning, as I prepared for work, Matthew came up to me looking worried. Lori, can you take care of this? He handed me a file stuffed with receipts and bills. You should get the cafe's finances in order. I smiled, trying to keep the mood light. Sorry, I'm not good with that stuff, I replied. I had met Matthew while he was working part-time at a cafe I often visited. After several conversations, we started dating and later talked about marriage. Now, he owned the cafe, but despite his business skills, he struggled with the paperwork and frequently asked me to handle it. As I sighed, my mother-in-law piped up, Lori, I'm craving Chinese cuisine tonight. Could you make sure to rinse the rice well? Also, Denise and the kids are visiting this weekend, so we need to plan their meals. Sure, I understand. I nodded, quickly agreeing to her request before hurrying out the door, eager to escape the mounting pressure at home. I was filled with anticipation for my new life with Matthew. However, he soon proposed a change, noting that my mom seemed lonely living by herself. Why don't we all move in together into our big house? He suggested. So now I live with his mother. To put it gently, she's not exactly skilled in maintaining a household. When we first moved in, I discovered the house was somewhat neglected following the passing of my father-in-law. She had begun to live off a pension, spending most of it on dining out or ordering in, which meant the domestic duties fell to me. Matthew, holding traditional views, seemed to think housework was a woman's responsibility, leaving me to manage everything. Adding to the workload, Matthew's sister, Denise, occasionally dropped by with her children, further expanding my list of tasks. The weekends, which I hoped would offer some respite from the week's fatigue, transformed into hectic periods filled with entertaining and feeding my sister-in-law's kids. Then one day, Denise dropped a major revelation. Lori, I'm getting divorced and will be moving back here with the kids next month, she announced. I was stunned and momentarily speechless. "Really? Do you have something to say?" she prodded. I managed to reply, "It must have been tough. When are you moving?" "I want to move as soon as possible," she answered. Though surprised by the news of Denise and her children moving in, I harbored a hope that perhaps her presence might make the household chores more manageable. We had a decent relationship, and I thought this change might bring us closer and encourage her to pitch in. Despite my optimistic outlook, reality soon set in differently. Perhaps because she was raised in the same manner as my mother-in-law, Denise seemed almost allergic to housework. She spent her days lounging on the sofa, often with a snack in hand, engrossed in the TV. Watching her, I couldn't help but wonder if her aversion to domestic responsibilities had played a role in her marital troubles. Now, with the added tasks of preparing extra meals for her children and packing lunches for kindergarten, my workload had only grown. My hope for assistance from Denise proved futile, a clear miss in my expectations. My free time dwindled rapidly, leaving me to reassess my situation and the dynamics within our crowded home. At my job, the workload has ramped up significantly. Every day, I start early, often do overtime, and return home completely drained to find our living space cluttered and barely walkable. This overwhelming scene greets me daily, intensifying my exhaustion. On top of that, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law never miss a chance to question me. "Is dinner ready yet?" Or, "Why are you home so late?" are common queries I face upon arriving home. When I struggle to keep up with household chores amidst my hectic schedule, they sharply comment, "Lori, there's a mountain of laundry waiting. Don't use your busyness as an excuse to slack off." Inside, I'm shouting, "I'm trying my best," but I often choose to hold back my words. Before my sister-in-law can respond, she sometimes tries to push me further. "Lori, standing up to your mother-in-law is bold, but for the kids' sake, please try harder to prepare homemade meals," she suggests. This prompts me to retort, albeit tiredly, "If you have so much free time, why not help out with the chores once in a while?" I've even overheard Matthew's sister joking, "Ha ha, since Matthew owns a store, Lori doesn't need to work, right? Maybe she should try harder at home." Their words pile on the pressure, making me feel as though I'm expected to do more. One night, at the peak of my stress, I decided it was time to voice my struggles to Matthew. "I've been incredibly busy lately, and neither your mother nor your sister is helping out with the chores. It's really hard," I said. Matthew's reaction was sharp. "Lori, you're not speaking ill of our family, are you?" he asked, his gaze hardening. I braced myself and explained, "That's not my intention, but it's challenging to manage everything alone. If you could help out occasionally, it would make things easier for me. I'm busy managing the store. It's not like a regular job. Housework is the wife's responsibility, right?" he replied dismissively. Disappointed by his lack of understanding, I sat alone, pondering. Then an idea struck me. Feeling a burst of determination, I silently pumped my fist in resolve. I grabbed my smartphone, opened my favorite online shopping app, and began adding necessary items to my cart. After completing my purchases, I went to bed feeling a small victory had been achieved, ready to tackle what lay ahead with new tools at my disposal. A few days later, my eagerly awaited electronic household appliances arrived, transforming my daily routine. The delivery included a state-of-the-art washing machine, a robotic vacuum that could navigate every nook and cranny of our home, and a rice cooker that promised perfect rice with minimal effort. Each device felt like a lifeline, promising to make life a bit easier and more enjoyable. While I was setting up the new washing machine, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law walked in, their faces a mix of surprise and curiosity. "Wow, Lori, you got such a fancy washing machine. But the old one was still working, wasn't it?" my mother-in-law asked, her tone hinting at skepticism. With a calm smile, I responded, "The old one was getting slow, and this new one can do the laundry much faster." Their attention then shifted to the cleaning robot and the new kitchen gadgets. "I've also upgraded these," I explained. showing them the new additions with a bit of pride. These gadgets, from cleaning robots to convenient cooking appliances, were my new allies in managing household tasks more efficiently. "Lori, can we talk for a moment?" My mother-in-law beckoned me into another room, her voice carrying a note of urgency. As we sat down, the discussion that followed was tense. "Why did you buy so many things?" she asked sharply. "Do you need all these new appliances, or is it just to make your life easier?" I tried to keep my composure. "I thought it would help things run smoother around the house," I replied, trying to sound reasonable yet sensing the brewing discontent. My mother-in-law was quick to counter, "Aren't we relying too much on machines?" My sister-in-law dismissively waved her hand, signaling her agreement with her mother. Despite their pushback, I maintained, the appliances we had were outdated. Matthew is busy with his store, and I thought being more efficient at home could help everyone. Matthew nodded along with his sister, suggesting frugality might be a better path. With a subdued voice, I conceded, "Maybe you're right." But inside, frustration was building. The conversation escalated quickly. "Are you even considering our household needs?" my mother-in-law challenged. I stumbled over my words, feeling cornered. "I am, but I'm just a bit exhausted," I admitted. "That's enough," my mother-in-law snapped, her voice filled with disbelief. "I can't believe you're our daughter-in-law," my sister-in-law added with a look of disdain. "I'll watch over Matthew. We don't need someone like you here." Turning to Matthew for some form of support, all I received was his cold reply. "I understand what Mom and Sis are saying. It's difficult having a wife who—" His words trailed off, leaving a chill in the air. As they left the room, I sat there, the weight of their words crushing me, yet the resolve in my heart grew stronger. The new appliances were my choice for a reason, and despite the opposition, I knew they were necessary for managing not just the household, but my sanity as well. Looking at Matthew, my heart sank. He gave a cold smile and said, "I have my store, so I decide how to spend my money, but being with someone who spends without thinking might be too hard for me." His words stung, but I kept my composure, looking into his eyes and silently counting to 12. With a touch of cruelty, he continued, "Also, I've noticed things have been going well with the new part-time girl at the store. She's more attractive than you are now. Maybe it's time for you to find a new place to live." A wave of anger rose inside me, but I held it back, took a deep breath, and calmly responded, "All right, I'll look for a new home." "Finally, you understand. I'll feel much better without you around," he replied smugly. That night, Matthew signed the divorce papers. I moved to a nearby weekly rental with just the essentials and the divorce papers in hand. As I left, no one tried to stop me, leaving me to wonder if they had ever really cared about me. After finalizing the divorce at the city office, I found a stylish apartment and started anew. Around the same time, an unexpected opportunity came my way. A promotion to section manager, a role I had previously put off due to my family situation. I embraced this new role with vigor, dedicating myself to my work and feeling a renewed sense of purpose and accomplishment. During one of my busy days, my phone rang. The caller ID showed it was my former mother-in-law. Thinking we had nothing to do with each other anymore, I dismissed the call without checking the message. My new life had begun, and I was not looking back. A year passed, and one relaxing weekend, as I enjoyed my favorite music, my phone rang again. To my surprise, it was my former mother-in-law. Curious about what she could want after all this time, I answered, "Hello, is something wrong?" "Lori, I finally got through. I didn't think you would answer after so many calls," she said, her voice uncertain. "Well, it's been a while. What's going on?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral yet cautious. She hesitated for a moment, seemingly unsure of how to proceed. Then she hesitated before asking, "How's your new life?" Despite her probing tone, I replied cheerfully, "It's great. I love my new apartment and work is going smoothly. I even got a promotion and I'm enjoying my freedom." "That's good, Lori. Can you come back home?" she suddenly asked. Taken aback, I blurted out, Why? We're struggling financially, she admitted, prompting me to think to myself that I had suspected as much. Responding cautiously, I said, Matthew's Cafe only makes about $2,000 a month, right? If no one else in the family works, things could be tough. You know about that? She asked, sounding surprised. Yes, I said. I was fully aware of its financial situation since I handled all the accounting. Matthew pretended to be a successful owner, but he was quite oblivious to the real state of his business. I couldn't help but find it almost laughable how unaware he was. I managed all the finances and procurement, so of course I knew. You knew and didn't tell us? We had no idea you were doing so well in such a big company or that you were contributing so much to the household expenses, my former mother-in-law exclaimed. I admitted, yes, I contributed more than $5,000 every month. Thanks to that, you all managed. The truth was that I had used my salary to cover the gaps in Matthew's business losses. He seemed completely unaware of the situation, and after I left, the reality seemed to have hit hard. Lori, can you please come back? She asked again. Curious, I inquired, so how's Matthew's Cafe doing now? She sighed. We might have to close soon, and the part-time workers keep quitting. With an inward smirk, I commented on his management style. It's hard to keep it going for long, isn't it? His little bit of pride doesn't help. Not doing proper work, I mean. How many women out there do you think would be willing to support a guy like that? My former mother-in-law was momentarily at a loss for words. I continued, somewhat sarcastically, Wait, I'm a bit busy now. Since you left, the house is a mess. It's chaotic with things everywhere, she explained, sounding desperate. Confused, I asked, Wait, what do you mean? She described the disarray of their home with belongings scattered everywhere, looking more like a storeroom. Without anyone to cook, they were eating out, which was costing a lot. The washing machine also broke down, she added, painting a picture of a household in complete disarray. Upon hearing that they couldn't afford a new washing machine, I was intrigued. The appliances that I took back, I relied on them, my former mother-in-law confessed. Puzzled, I responded, Why is that? Those were mainly for my convenience, and since I purchased them myself, it was okay for me to take them back, right? She hesitantly agreed, Yeah, I guess so, but I never realized housework was this challenging. With a tone of resignation, she added, With 3 adults in the house, how can it be that hard? What are Matthew and your daughter doing? She sounded tired as she continued. As for Matthew, his staff members have been quitting and sales have plummeted. When he found out, he just became downcast and has been lazing around at home. He used to spend his money from the store without any restraint. On top of that, Denise doesn't help at all, she added. She doesn't do anything around the house and even gets her allowance from me. Living on just my pension for the 3 of us is hard. I replied with a hint of sarcasm. Ah, Denise once told me I was unnecessary because she was there. Desperately, my former mother-in-law admitted, Lori, we're really in trouble. Living on just my pension for the 3 of us is quite tough. I stated firmly, I have no intention of returning to that house. It must be hard living with all that baggage. She seemed at a loss for words, and seeing her like this made me feel a bit sorry for her. But as I was about to hang up, she seemed eager to say something more. Lori, I'm really sorry. Can you reconsider? Her voice sounded exhausted. I pondered. I wonder if we can ever spend days together with smiles again, huh? Was it that hard without me? I asked, mixing surprise with calmness. After a short pause, she took a deep breath and revealed more distressing news. Yes, there's an issue with the property tax. We might have to let go of the house. The call ended with a heavy silence, leaving me to reflect on the complex dynamics of the family I had left behind and the new life I had embraced. I see, I said, although I didn't want any part of it anymore. You'll have to decide what to do with your family. I hung up before she could say anything else and set up my phone so I wouldn't receive any more calls from her. Back in my room, holding my favorite mug filled with aromatic coffee, I relished my solitude. Gazing out at the scenery, a spontaneous smile crossed my face. A few months later, as I passed by the cafe where Matthew used to work, I noticed it was now quiet and empty. Remembering its past liveliness made me feel a bit nostalgic. It seemed they had closed the shop. While wandering around the old town, I grew curious about what had become of my former in-laws' house. To my surprise, I saw a sold sign outside. By chance, I bumped into an old neighbor who filled me in. The three had quickly sold their house and moved to a small apartment nearby. In their new home, loud arguments were frequent, and there was even talk about the smell of garbage, becoming a bit of local gossip. It sounded tough for them, but I thought about how a little effort could change one's circumstances. I wondered why they didn't try. As I looked at the old house, these thoughts wandered through my mind. A lot has happened since then, but I'm living each day to the fullest. Recently, a handsome guy from my workplace confessed his admiration for my hardworking nature. Now we're enjoying our dates, and I'm really looking forward to what the future holds. If I get married again, I want it to be truly happy. Thinking about all this, I felt a surge of excitement for the future.